Hello, and welcome to the Cass Health Podcast, the show where we hope to connect our community with healthcare information that's relatable, understandable, and useful to your life, and where you get to know better the neighbors providing your care here. I'm your host, Carter Anderson, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about prediabetes with family medicine physician assistant Mary Robinson. Before we get started, 2 quick disclaimers. First, the comments on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Cass Health. Second, the information in this podcast is not intended to be construed as personal medical advice. Always consult your primary care provider with questions and concerns regarding your health. Welcome back, Mary. Thanks for joining us for another topic here about prediabetes management and stuff. Here at Cass Health, you're well known as our diabetes expert. What made you decide to get certified in diabetes management? Was there a specific moment that made you feel strongly that this was the right subspecialty for you?
So actually, the reason why I decided to get my BCADM, which just means board certified in advanced diabetes management, was we actually do a lot of care in the community with our VA population. And with the VA, they do not recognize me as a PA to prescribe certain things for my patients, specifically continuous glucose monitors and insulin pumps. And so getting those 5 extra little letters behind my name has taken that barrier away for patients. And that's the big reason why I went ahead and did that. The other reason is probably now for the last 3 to 4 years, I've really done a lot with diabetes after working with our previous provider who did our diabetes center. Mm-hmm. We worked really closely together doing some chronic pain or chronic care management, and I learned a ton from her, and then I just kind of took off.
Just kind of started there, and then
Yep.
That's interesting that you have to have all that cert to be able to do continuous glucose monitors and stuff like that.
It's ridiculous, but
Right.
It's how the government works, and at some point that barrier will eventually be taken away for APPs because they're just as knowledgeable
Right.
as a certified diabetic educator or an MDDO.
So you kind of shared some pretty interesting statistics with us here.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 in 3 U.S. adults have prediabetes.
Yeah, prediabetes is the biggest risk factor for someone to end up with type 2 diabetes. The scary thing is there's really no symptoms or signs of prediabetes. So 9 out of 10 people who have prediabetes don't even know they have it, which is kind of scary. And the other big thing is as we've talked before with our obesity management stuff, insulin resistance starts 15 to 20 years before we would even diagnose somebody with prediabetes. So it's kind of a scary thing if you think about it.
Kind of silent as it kind of lays there for a while, and then until the issues are too big to ignore. What is prediabetes? So
what prediabetes means is that your blood sugars are higher than normal, what they should be. So normal blood sugar, so a fasting blood sugar, which would be nothing to eat or drink for at least 10 to 12 hours fasting, should be between 70 to 100. So somebody who has prediabetes, that number could be anything above 100, up to about 120-ish. Is usually what we're kind of looking at. But you don't have, your blood sugars aren't high enough to classify you with diabetes. So it's that kind of that gray area, if you will. That
murky middle between good blood sugar and then high enough to be considered diabetic. Okay. How do you get diagnosed with prediabetes? Are there any common signs or symptoms?
So getting diagnosed with prediabetes is blood work, actually. So that's why it's extremely important for people to come in and see their primary provider at least once a year, because this is something we do screen for. That's why we hold our annual health fair labs. That's why providers try to do blood work on patients every single year, is because we're looking specifically for things in your blood work. And one of them is your fasting glucose. So if we see that your fasting blood glucose is, 120, 130, 140, then we're going to turn around and add an A1C to your blood work. So, because we want to know if, yes, do you have prediabetes, or do you have diabetes, or is it just a circumstance because of things that have happened a few days before? So with an A1C, which is the big blood test we talk about with diabetes, 6.5 or higher, that is our cutoff for diabetes. So if you have 6.5 or higher, that means you have diabetes. An A1C of 5.6 or less is normal. So prediabetes is that 5.7 to 6.4. And then depending on where that number is, so if it's on the higher side in the 6s, sometimes I personally will have people come back in 6 months just to recheck that number, because we want to watch it super closely. Because if we can reduce your risk of flipping to diabetes and keep you prediabetes, or even try to stave it off even longer, we want to know those numbers, because that's what drives what we do for treatment.
Because that once you kind of get over that threshold, it's really hard to go.
Yes, because once you're technically diagnosed with diabetes, you can never not have diabetes. It's kind of like all the other chronic health conditions. You can be in remission. You can be what we call diet controlled. But yeah, so if we can prevent that flip, that is our biggest thing. The other question was common symptoms. So there's technically really no symptoms of prediabetes. I mean, you could have symptoms of diabetes, which the most common ones are increased thirst, fatigue, weight gain, and increased urination.
Those are kind of the main ones for diabetes.
Yes, but if you have prediabetes, sometimes you can have those symptoms too, which if you come into the office complaining of those symptoms, that would preempt us to check more blood work too. So,
who is at risk of developing prediabetes?
All right, so that's kind of a long list. So if one of the bigger drivers is if your family history. So if you have a mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, brother, sister who have already been diagnosed with diabetes, you are at higher risk already. If you are a woman and when you're pregnant, if you have gestational diabetes, that puts you at risk later in life. If you are a child who is born to a woman or father who have diabetes, you're at risk for that. If you were born at 9 pounds or higher, you're at risk. If you are carrying excess weight, that puts you at risk. If you already have other chronic health conditions, so high blood pressure, elevated cholesterol, sleep apnea, polycystic ovarian syndrome, all of those put you at high risk as well. And then there actually are different populations that are at higher risk than others. So African American, Asian, Hispanic, and Native Americans tend to be higher at risk too for prediabetes, diabetes.
There's a lot of different things that bring risks,
Yes.
right? The one that I'm like, birth weight greater than 9 pounds?
Yes.
What's the deal there? What's that? Like, what's the precursors to that? Is it because of the likelihood that your parents would have had gestational diabetes?
Can be, yes.
Okay.
But they say, I mean, obviously excess weight and as an infant being that big, I mean, it's...
You kind of start out there, basically.
Yeah, it's a correlation, unfortunately.
Okay. That's what I didn't know if it was like a correlation doesn't equal causation ever what it was. So what are the potential health consequences of untreated prediabetes?
One, if we don't know you have prediabetes, but two, if you do have it and we don't treat it, the likelihood that you will end up with diabetes is extremely high. So that's the biggest thing. But it also puts you at other risk. If you don't have any of those chronic health conditions that we've already talked about, then it puts you at risk for, especially the big one is cardiovascular, so myocardial infarction or strokes. So it can put you at risk for chronic kidney disease, high blood pressure, all of that stuff. It's all intertwined, unfortunately.
It all ties together, unfortunately.
Yes.
Absolutely. Can individuals prevent prediabetes from developing into type 2 diabetes?
Absolutely, 100%.
Let's talk about lifestyle modifications. What's the conversation that you have with patients who are ready to make changes?
So, once again, I love when people say, I'm ready here. I want to make changes. I want to prevent X, Y, and Z from happening. Mm-hmm. That's great. So there are several different things we can do to help with our lifestyle modifications to help reduce our risk or reverse prediabetes. Mm-hmm. So number one, obviously, is going to be your diet. So we're looking at things like, as we've talked previously in our other podcasts with obesity, is low carb, low fat. So it's the same simple diet. We want to focus more on our high lean proteins, our vegetables, and then all the other stuff that's starchy. We're looking at like the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, things like that. Another huge thing is going to be your physical activity. So if you're a person who doesn't have a whole lot of it, just that process of getting more active is going to be beneficial no matter what. Mm-hmm. Sleep is another huge thing. Yes, sleep is huge when it comes to your health. So, I mean, if you don't get enough sleep, it actually can affect your health negatively with any type of chronic health condition. The big thing, too, is another reason why we like to see people every year is if you are at risk for sleep apnea and it's undiagnosed, that actually can put you more at risk for diabetes, prediabetes, heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure. So those things are extremely important. And then, yes, stress management, mental health is also a huge important part of any type of lifestyle modification. We want that to be part of that as well. If you are a smoker, quitting smoking is definitely going to benefit to help reduce your risk for prediabetes and plus 1,000 other things as well. Whole nother topic for a different time.
Right, absolutely. I was going to say, you also, do you have
I'm certified for tobacco treatment specialist too.
Help people with all types of different complications.
Yes.
So.
And then just like we talked before in our other podcasts, as far as like lifestyle modifications go, talk to your primary provider. We want to meet you where you're at so that we can help you make those changes. We aren't going to make giant changes right off the bat. We got to do slow things and that are easily attainable and slowly work up to those goals.
Gradual incremental change and then it'll stick and last. There
Absolutely.
Specifically about nutrition, I've seen videos online about like glycemic index or eating foods that don't spike your blood sugar. Can you explain what that means?
Glycemic index in basic terms to explain to you, it is ranking foods on how quickly they will spike your blood sugars. So the higher the glycemic index number, the higher it's going to spike your blood sugars, if that makes any sense at all. So like chicken is not going to be a high glycemic index because it's not going to jump your blood sugar. Sweet corn, on the other hand, is going to jump it right up.
So that's kind of like the foods are kind of ranked on that
Yep.
scale for how likely they are to do that.
Yep.
Okay.
So, I mean, your lower glycemic foods are going to be like proteins, all your good non-starchy vegetables, your fiber. Those are the big things that we focus on.
Okay. Is there advice or recommendations you make about what and how to eat your meals if you're trying to lower your blood sugar? Like, are there ways to eat that will reduce those spikes at all?
So, I mean, depending on where they're at and how they eat, sometimes with people who live with diabetes, we do recommend eating more frequent, smaller meals throughout the day to keep your glycemic index more stabilized. But otherwise, yes, we're going to focus mainly on your lean proteins, your vegetables, and kind of start there too.
How often should individuals at risk for prediabetes get tested, and what tests do they need?
So I would say everyone needs to be tested for it for at least once a year. So that'll be at your annual visit with your provider. Like I said, getting blood work at least once a year, that's one of the things we're screening for. So that would be what we call a fasting blood sugar or fasting glucose. And so that's why when we talk about doing blood work with patients, that's why we want you to fast, because that way we can get that true number. So it would be nothing to eat or drink after midnight. Glass of water, black coffee are totally fine before you come in for blood work, which always makes some people a lot happier because they want to have their coffee in the morning. But that's the big test. And like I said, if that fasting glucose is high, then we're going to turn around and draw an A1C, which is one of the gold standards for looking for diabetes.
Gotcha. That's what those blood tests are super important. So, because it's so, like you said, it's quiet and it can be there 15 to 20 years before you kind of realize that it needs to be diagnosed. So can you tell me a little bit about the MyChart test results at all?
Okay, so on MyChart, when we do your blood work on there, it shows you kind of a bar. So it has a green level, a yellow level, and a red level. So anything that's in the green level is considered normal.
Okay.
Yellow is going to be borderline, and then red is obviously means high.
Okay. Yep. So that's kind of how, when you get those test results back, like, what all these colors mean?
Yeah, so if your fasting glucose is in that yellow range, that's what we're looking at.
Gotcha. That's the one.
Or red.
Either one of those two.
Yeah, well, if your blood sugar is in the red, my guess is that's when it's going to be more towards your like 180, 190, 200s. And then that makes me more concerned for diabetes versus prediabetes. But where we're looking at on there for MyChart is that yellow area on your glucose.
The yellow area probably means you're going to get another test of some type, A1C or something. So.
Yes.
Do you recommend any specific resources for patients trying to manage diabetes? Are there good ones out there?
Yeah, actually there are quite a few good ones. The ADA, so the American Diabetes Association, they have a bunch of stuff on there specifically on prediabetes because they like to do a lot of focusing on prevention of diabetes. So they have some great resources. The CDC is another excellent place to go for that. They actually have a National Diabetes Prevention Program that you can do and work on that because it's, once again, a lot of it is very much focused on lifestyle changes to help prevent prediabetes.
So there's kind of like a pre-existing program out there that you can kind of work through with. That's awesome.
Yep. And then obviously your primary provider is going to be another great resource for you too.
Kind of a great team to kind of get you back to those lower numbers, back into the green, right?
Yep. And if you see any of the providers here at Cass Health, if they don't have the answer when it comes to diabetes, they know the person they turn to ask for those questions. So.
Absolutely. For patients that are kind of really looking for those diet and nutritional kind of lifestyle modifications that we've talked about, are there any resources here at Cass Health specifically for those?
Yeah, we can use Sarah Anderson, our dietitian. She does a lot with helping us teach patients about different diets and how to work within their chronic health conditions. I know with diabetes and prediabetes, she uses a lot with the Glucose Goddess is one of the things that she works with. And she also can give you lots of great resources and recipes too to help make food fun, if you will, as we're trying to eat better.
Right. It doesn't have to be awful. It can still be
absolutely
good food.
Not.
Right.
No, and like I always tell everybody that sees me, for if it's obesity, if it's for prediabetes, if it's for diabetes, I am not going to be the person that tells you you can't eat something.
Right.
You can eat what you want, but it's all about moderation and changing things. So if my one example is if you're going to go to a birthday party and you want that piece of birthday cake, have it. Just don't have a big piece, have a small piece, and then somewhere else throughout your day, you're going to have to make up for eating that excess carbs. You may have to cut something else somewhere else throughout your day to make up for that. So it's all about a give and take.
Decide what you really want and then make adjustments for it.
Yep.
Awesome.
We can make healthy food taste good. I promise.
Not so scary, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us for our pre-diabetes episode, and we'll see you next time for our diabetes management episode, I think.
Yes. Sounds great.
Awesome.